The scream caught in Emma's throat came out as a strangled whisper. Lila felt her daughter's hand clench around hers with surprising strength for an 8-year-old. Quick pause. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. If this story has you hooked, hit like and subscribe, because what's coming next is even more intense. They'd taken the shortcut through the abandoned industrial district. A stupid decision, Lila would later admit, but she'd been running late from her double shift at Riverside Hospice. The evening sun cast long shadows across rusted rails that hadn't seen a train in 20 years. Or so she'd thought. Mama, there's a man. Lila followed Emma's pointing finger. At first she thought it was debris, dark fabric, maybe old clothing someone had dumped. Then she saw the rope. Thick industrial cord binding wrists and ankles to the iron tracks. And blood. So much blood it looked black in the fading light. The man's head turned toward them. Even from 30 feet away, she could see the desperate calculation in his eyes, the question of whether they were salvation or just witnesses to his final moments. Then she heard it. The low rumble. The metal-on-metal screech that meant something was moving on tracks that weren't supposed to carry anything anymore. Emma, stay back. Lila was already running, her nurse's bag bouncing against her hip. Her hands found the camping multi-tool she'd carried since Emma's father left. The one thing Mark had been good for. She dropped to her knees beside the bound man, saw the bullet wound in his shoulder, the bruises circling his throat, the perfect tailoring of his blood-soaked suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His voice was gravel and broken glass. Cut me loose. Now. The headlight appeared around the bend. Not a freight train, a locomotive being moved for maintenance, but moving fast enough to do the job it had been intended to do. Lila's hands moved without conscious thought, sawing through rope that bit into swollen flesh. She felt Emma behind her, small hands pulling at the knots around his ankles. Smart girl. Brave girl. Too brave. The blade cut through the final cord with 15 seconds to spare. They dragged him, all 6 feet and probably 200 pounds of him, off the tracks just as the engine roared past, its horn splitting the air, the conductor never seeing what he'd almost been party to. Lila pressed her fingers to his throat, felt the thready pulse, saw the bullet wounds still seeping. Every ounce of training screamed at her to call 911. But the expensive suit, the professional torture, the execution attempt. This man had enemies who'd already proven they could access abandoned rail yards and reroute maintenance trains. She met his eyes, dark, intense, fully aware despite the blood loss. Can you walk? If my life depends on it. It does. Both of ours do now. She glanced at Emma, who hadn't cried, hadn't run. Maybe all 3 Dorian's people arrived at dawn, black SUVs, armed security, and the revelation that Lila and Emma were now marked targets. Leo, Dorian's head of security, showed her traffic camera footage proving Chen's people had already identified her vehicle and home address. You have maybe 3 hours before they show up at your apartment, Leo said, his voice matter-of-fact. Pack what matters. Leave the rest. With no choice, Lila threw clothing and Emma's favorite books into garbage bags. 2 years of careful rebuilding abandoned in 20 minutes. The modest apartment that had represented stability and safety was now a liability, a beacon marking them for death. They were brought to Dorian's compound, 15 acres in the hills, ringed by reinforced walls and armed patrols. The main house was beautiful in a way that felt obscene. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens, art that probably cost more than Lila's nursing school debt. Maria, the house manager, showed them to adjoining rooms on the 2nd floor. Emma's had a canopy bed and built-in bookshelves. Lila's had a balcony view and an ensuite bathroom larger than her previous living room. This is temporary, Lila told Emma as they unpacked. Just until it's safe. Emma looked at her with eyes too old for 8. Safe like when Daddy left and you said everything would be okay? The words landed like a fist. I know I've asked you to be brave a lot. But this time. I know, Mama. Emma squeezed her hand. This time the danger's real. Not just scary feelings. Dinner that night was surreal. Pasta carbonara served on china, wine Lila couldn't pronounce, and Dorian Vale, crime lord, attempted murder victim, the man whose blood she'd mopped from her kitchen floor, asking Emma about school with genuine interest. What's your favorite subject? He asked. History, Emma said without hesitation. I like learning about people who change things. Even when they broke rules to do it? Emma considered this with a seriousness that made Lila's chest tight. I think sometimes rules are made by people who don't understand what needs changing. Dorian smiled, the first real smile Lila had seen from him. You're going to be dangerous when you grow up. After Emma went to bed, Lila found Dorian on the terrace. He was healed enough to move without wincing, but she could still see the careful way he held his left side. Tomorrow we will talk about strategy, he said without preamble. Tonight you're safe. That's a promise. Why should I trust your promises? He turned to face her fully. Because you saved my life when you could have walked away. Because you brought your daughter into danger to help a stranger. Because you're not afraid of me, and I find that unusual. Maybe I'm just stupid. No. His voice was certain. You're a lot of things, Lila Carrington. But stupid isn't one of them. She should have felt threatened. Instead, she felt seen, really seen, for the first time in years. It terrified her more than the armed guards ever could. Life at the compound developed unexpected rhythms. Emma did schoolwork in the library while Lila explored the grounds under watchful eyes. She encountered Dorian frequently, recovering with inhuman speed, running his empire from the study with the door open, as if inviting her to witness exactly who he was. Thursday brought the first real threat. Leo burst into the kitchen where Lila was making Emma lunch. Surveillance drones. 4 of them, perimeter sweep. Lila's hands froze on the sandwich she was assembling. Emma's in the library. I already have 2 guards with her. Leo was already moving. Standard protocol. Through the window, Lila watched Dorian's response unfold with military precision. Within 6 minutes, all 4 drones were neutralized, 2 shot down, 2 jammed electronically. No panic, no chaos. Just cold, calculated efficiency. That evening, Dr. Sarah Kim arrived to check Dorian's healing wounds. Lila watched the doctor work, competent, thorough, completely unfazed by the circumstances. How long have you been doing this? Lila asked after Emma was asleep. Sarah looked up from her medical bag. 3 years. Since Dorian rescued my brother from human traffickers. Rescued. The police wrote Danny off as another missing immigrant. Not worth the resources, they said. Sarah's jaw tightened. Dorian found him in a shipping container at the docks. Didn't ask for payment. Just acted when no one else would. Lila absorbed this. So you work for him now. I work with him. There's a difference. Sarah met her eyes. This world isn't simple, Lila. It's not good people and bad people. It's people trying to survive in a system that's failed them. Later that night, Lila couldn't sleep. She found herself outside Dorian's study, listening to him plan with Leo. Victor will be at the warehouse Saturday night, Dorian was saying. We move then. And Chin? Leo asked. Still gathering intelligence. But he's escalating. The drones prove that. Lila pushed the door open. Both men looked up, but neither seemed surprised. Victor's the one who sold you out, she said. Not a question. Dorian nodded. My own second in command. 20 years of loyalty, gone for Chen's money. What happens when you catch him? He answers for what he did. You mean he dies? Dorian didn't flinch from her directness. Yes. Lila should have been horrified. Should have grabbed Emma and demanded they leave immediately. Instead, she found herself asking, and the federal contacts Leo mentioned? You have law enforcement helping you? Some. The ones who understand that sometimes the system needs unofficial assistance. Dorian stood, moved closer. I'm not asking you to approve. I'm just asking you not to run. Not yet. Why does it matter if I stay or go? His answer was quiet, honest. Because since you cut those ropes, I've been imagining a different life. One where mornings aren't about strategy meetings. Where I could be something other than this. Lila's breath caught. I caught myself wondering what staying would look like. And? I'm terrified it might be exactly what I want. Dorian reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing her jaw. You could leave, he said. I'd make sure you and Emma were protected. But I'm hoping you won't. She leaned into his touch just slightly. Ask me again after I see what you do to Victor. The explosion at 3:17 a.m. threw Lila from her bed. She was moving before conscious thought, Emma's name ripping from her throat. Maria appeared in her doorway already dressed. Safe room. Now. They ran, Lila carrying Emma who'd woken screaming, down corridors lit by emergency lighting. The safe room was reinforced steel, stocked with supplies, equipped with monitors showing every angle of the compound. Lila watched the screens, Emma pressed against her side, as Dorian directed defensive operations. He moved through the chaos in tactical gear with the precision of someone who'd lived this life for decades. Not scared. Not even angry. Just focused. The assault lasted 12 brutal minutes. When it was over, 5 of Chen's enforcers lay dead in the compound gardens, 3 had retreated with injuries, and none of Dorian's people were critically hurt. Dorian came to the safe room himself. His tactical vest was scorched, his face smudged with smoke, but he was whole. Emma broke free from Lila and wrapped her arms around his waist. I thought they'd hurt you. He crouched to her level, meeting her eyes with the same seriousness he'd give an adult. Nothing gets through these walls while I'm breathing. That's a promise, Emma? You don't make promises you can't keep, do you? Never. After Emma finally fell asleep, exhausted by terror and adrenaline, Lila found Dorian on the terrace where they'd stood days before. He was still in his tactical gear, staring out at the gardens where his security team was processing the aftermath. I need to understand your world, she said without preamble. All of it. No more shielding me. He turned to face her. Are you sure? Once you see clearly, you can't unsee. I'm already in this, Dorian. The attack proved that. I'd rather understand what I'm facing. Then tomorrow, I will show you everything. Dorian opened his world completely. In his study, he spread ledgers and financial documents across the desk, literally showing Lila the books. Legitimate businesses, he pointed to columns of numbers. Import-export companies. Construction firms employ 300 people. Real estate holdings. And the rest. Protection payments from businesses in my territory. Money laundering through legitimate operations. Enforcement actions against competitors. He didn't soften it. This is who I am, Lila. All of it. She studied the ledgers with a nurse's clinical eye, seeing patterns in the chaos. These donations. Anonymous contributions to hospitals, scholarships for families who've lost breadwinners. Guilt money, some would call it. What do you call it? Trying to build something that outlasts me. Transitioning toward legitimacy. It's a decade-long process with enemies at every turn. Lila looked up from the numbers. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Simple. Easy to categorize. Monster or savior. She closed the ledger. But you're just complicated. Human. Disappointingly so. She surprised them both by laughing. I want to train your security team properly. Advanced trauma protocols, field medicine, everything I know. But I'm doing this so they can help each other, not just take more territory. Agreed. Whatever you need. Over the following days, Lila earned respect through competence rather than connection to Dorian. His security team, hardened criminals, former military, people who'd chosen violence as profession, listened when she taught them to pack wounds, manage shock, and perform emergency procedures. Leo pulled her aside one afternoon. He's different around you and the kid. Lighter. Never seen that before in 20 years. Maybe he's just healing from torture and attempted murder. No. Leo's voice was certain. It's you. Both of you. That evening in the library, tension that had been building for days finally broke. Lila was reviewing medical supplies when Dorian found her. Tell me about Emma's father, he said. The question surprised her. Mark? He left when Emma was 6. Said being a father was too much pressure, too much responsibility. She set down her clipboard, cleaned out our joint account and disappeared. We haven't heard from him in 2 years. He's an idiot. Agreed. But Emma's better off without him. She met his eyes. Why ask? Because I need to know what I'm up against. What kind of father Emma remembers? You're worried about competing with him? I'm worried about failing her. The vulnerability in his voice undid something in Lila. She crossed the space between them, her hand finding his. Since you cut those ropes, I've been imagining a different life too. One where I'm not just surviving. His other hand came up to her face, fingers threading through her hair. Tell me to stop. Don't you dare. The kiss was inevitable, hunger and desperation and 12 days of tension breaking at once. His mouth met hers with the same precision he brought to everything else, learning what made her gasp, what made her press closer. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lila rested her forehead against his. I'm terrified. Not of you. Of how much I want this. Then don't step back. Step forward with me. Dorian planned the operation to capture Victor with the same precision he brought to everything else. Lila insisted on coming, positioned in a medical van half a mile from the target warehouse with Dr. Kim. You don't have to watch, Sarah said as monitors lit up with tactical feeds. Yes, I do. The assault unfolded with devastating efficiency. Dorian's team breached the warehouse in 3 coordinated points. Victor was captured within 6 minutes, but one of Chen's guards, unexpected backup, caught Dorian with a blade across his ribs before going down. Lila's training overrode fear. Get him to the van. Now. They brought Dorian bleeding, his tactical vest cut away, the wound seeping through his shirt. Lila's hands were rock steady as she assessed the damage, deep but clean, missing anything vital by inches. Sit down. Let me see it. Her command authority left no room for argument. As she closed the wound with battlefield sutures, Dorian watched her face. You're not even shaking. I'll shake later. Right now, you need me to be steady. She tied off the final suture. Done. You'll have an impressive scar. Another one for the collection. Back at the compound, Victor was secured in a holding room. Dorian questioned him with Leo present, getting locations of Chen's safe houses, details of his organization's structure. Lila watched through security monitors, seeing the cold calculation she'd glimpsed before. In the quiet hours after midnight, Rachel made a choice. She went to Dorian's room, not from obligation or gratitude but desire. He opened the door at her knock, surprise crossing his face. You should be sleeping. I should do a lot of things. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Scared of you. Repulsed by your world. Already gone. Why aren't you? Because you're terrifying and gentle. Violent and kind. You're everything I should run from and I can't. Her voice dropped. I don't want to. What followed was slow, deliberate, transformative. Dorian treated her like something precious and breakable, until she demanded more, until they were equals in the darkness, discovering each other with the same intensity they brought to everything else. Afterward, wrapped in sheets that cost more than her old couch, Lila traced the scars across his chest. No regrets. Never. He caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. You? Ask me again in the morning. Morning came with Emma's voice in the hallway. Where's Mama? Lila threw on Dorian's shirt and found her daughter in the kitchen. Emma looked between them. Lila's borrowed shirt, Dorian making coffee in the clothes he'd pulled on, and asked with 8-year-old directness, Are you together now? Yes, Lila said because there was no point lying to a child that was perceptive. Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to important questions. He's not Daddy. No, he's not. But maybe he could be something else. Something different that's still good. Dorian crouched to Emma's level. I'll take care of both of you. That's not negotiable. Promise? Promise? Emma nodded, satisfied, and went back to her cereal like they'd just discussed weekend plans instead of reorganizing their entire family structure. Dorian surprised them with an outing 2 days later. Private beach, he explained as Leo's team loaded 3 SUVs. Properly secured, completely off-grid. I want to give you both something beyond fortress walls. The beach was beautiful. White sand, clear water, and enough discreet security that Lila could almost forget they were targets. Emma built elaborate sandcastles while Dorian helped, both of them laughing when waves destroyed their architectural efforts. Lila watched them and felt something fundamental shift. This wasn't temporary anymore. This was her life, complicated, dangerous, and more real than anything she'd known in years. That evening, after Emma fell asleep in the car, Lila and Dorian walked the beach alone. "I'm terrified by how right this feels," she admitted. "Then don't step back. Step forward with me." He stopped, turned to face her. "I want to do this right. With you. With Emma." "What does right look like in your world?" "Transparency about dangerous operations. Emma's safety is always paramount. You have a professional purpose beyond being my partner." He squeezed her hand. "Tell me what you need." "Boundaries. If there's an operation that could affect us, I need to know details. Not filtered information, reality." She gathered courage. "And I want to open a clinic. Private practice for families in your organization. Medical care without questions or paper trails." "Done. Whatever you need to make it happen." "And Emma? I want to be what she needs. But Lila, I never had a father. I don't know how to be one." The vulnerability in his voice made her chest ache. "You're already doing better than you think. You see her. You listen. You keep promises." She touched his face. "That's more than Mark ever managed." Leo interrupted breakfast with devastating intelligence. Intercepted communications from Chen's network. He's planning to grab the kid. Specifically. The words hit like physical blows. Lila's hand tightened on Emma's shoulder, every protective instinct screaming. "When?" Dorian's voice was ice. "Soon. Maybe days. He wants leverage against you." Dorian stood. "Immediate lockdown. Triple security on?" "No." Lila's voice cut through the rising panic. "We don't run. We don't hide. We will end this." "Lila. Listen to me. We can keep running, keep hiding, keep waiting for the next attack. Or we set a trap. Use his plan against him. Finish this permanently." Leo and Dorian exchanged glances. "You're talking about using Emma as bait," Leo said carefully. "I'm talking about controlled variables instead of constant fear." Lila met Dorian's eyes. "You said you'd be transparent. So tell me, can you protect her while we do this?" "Really protect her?" "Yes. But the risk is already here. Chen won't stop. So we make him think he's winning, then we end him." Emma, who'd been quiet through the entire exchange, spoke up. "I can be brave if it helps stop the bad people." "Baby, you've been brave enough." "Mama, I'm scared every night. Every time you leave a room, I'm scared. It's like when Daddy left." Emma's voice was steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "Can we make it stop? Really stop?" Lila pulled her daughter close, met Dorian's eyes over Emma's head, and made the hardest choice of her life. "We set the trap. But Emma never leaves this compound. What they think is happening and what's real, those are two different things." Over the next hours they planned meticulously. False information leaked through Victor, still in custody, still useful, about transferring Emma to a city-safe house with minimal security. In reality, Emma would remain at the heavily fortified compound with the majority of Dorian's forces while a smaller team set an ambush at the decoy location. Lila insisted on being part of every strategic discussion, needing to understand exactly what danger her daughter faced, what protections were in place, what could go wrong. "If this fails," she told Dorian that night, "if anything happens to her, it won't. I've never been more certain of anything." He pulled her close. "Chin is walking into a trap. He just doesn't know it yet." The trap sprang at dusk. Lila sat in the command vehicle with Dr. Kim, watching monitors as Chen's convoy approached the decoy safe house. 4 vehicles, perhaps 15 enforcers, moving with the confidence of predators closing on prey. They reached to find Dorian's team in strategic positions. The firefight was brutal but brief. 10 minutes of controlled violence that left 11 of Chen's people down and 3 surrendered. Marcus Chen himself was dragged out in restraints, fury twisting his features. "This isn't over, Vale. You can't kill everyone." Lila watched Dorian approach Chen on the monitors and saw the moment where calculation crossed his face, the instant where he would typically order immediate execution. But instead, he glanced toward her monitoring station and chose differently. "Contact our federal liaison," Dorian told Leo. Marcus Chin is going into witness protection. In exchange for testimony against the Triad Network. Chen's fury turned to confusion. What? You're going to federal prison, Dorian said. You'll testify against everyone above you, everyone beside you and everyone below you. And you'll live, in a cell watching your empire crumble from the inside. Why not just kill me? Dorian looked directly at the camera at Lila watching. Because someone reminded me that justice and revenge aren't the same thing. And only one of them lets me sleep at night. Leo handled the federal transfer while Dorian returned to the command vehicle. When he climbed inside, Lila wrapped her arms around him, feeling the tension drain from his frame. You chose differently, she whispered. I chose better. Because of you. Back at the compound, Emma was safe, had never been in danger, surrounded by armed security and waiting with Maria. When Lila and Dorian walked through the door, Emma launched herself at both of them. Is it over? Really over? Really over, Dorian confirmed. The bad people are gone. That night, after Emma finally fell asleep, exhausted by relief and residual fear, Lila found Dorian in his study. He was staring at paperwork but not really seeing it. You're changing him, Leo had said. For the better. She hadn't believed it then. But watching him choose strategic justice over violent revenge, seeing him become someone different because he wanted to, that was real. That was a transformation. Where do we go from here? She asked. He looked up, pulled her into his lap. Wherever you want. As long as it's together. 2 months later, Lila made it official. She called her supervisor at Riverside Hospice and resigned. I'm relocating for family reasons, she said, which was true in every way that mattered. The clinic opened on compound grounds 3 weeks later. A fully equipped medical facility where Lila could provide care for families in Dorian's organization without questions or paper trails. It wasn't traditional medicine, but it was important work. Necessary work. Emma enrolled in private school, thriving in ways Lila hadn't seen since Mark left. She made friends, joined the drama club, brought home artwork that Dorian hung in his study like it belonged in museums. Life developed unexpected normalcy. Family dinners where Emma monopolized conversation with school drama. Homework at the kitchen table. Permission slips for field trips. Arguments about appropriate bedtimes. One evening on the compound balcony, their spot now where important conversations happened, Dorian asked the question Lila had been waiting for. Any regrets? She considered honestly, looking out over the grounds they called home. Guards patrolled distantly. The clinic stood ready. Emma's laughter drifted from the house where she was video calling school friends. About cutting those ropes? Never. Lila turned to face him. About staying? Not yet. Ask me again in 10 years. Will you still be here in 10 years? I'm choosing to be here now. Every day I choose this. She laced her fingers through his. It's not the life I planned. Not safe or simple or conventional. But it's mine. Ours. Built from choices instead of chances. She smiled. I came here to survive. Somewhere along the way, I started living instead. Dorian pulled her close, kissed her temple. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. All of me. And choosing to stay anyway. Below them, security lights illuminated gardens where men had died months before. Inside, Emma was begging Maria to let her stay up late. The clinic waited for tomorrow's patients. Life, complicated, dangerous, imperfect life, continued in all its messy glory. Lila had saved Dorian Vale on a set of abandoned train tracks. But in the end, he'd saved her too, from a life of playing small, from survival that looked like safety but felt like slowly disappearing. This was better. Terrifying and honest and real. This was enough.
If you enjoy watching this, please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.